Supreme Intelligence Officer Vextal stared at the holographic display with all four of his eyes, mandibles clicking in agitation. Something was wrong with the numbers, but he couldn't quite place what. The statistical analysis of border system activities lay before him like a scattered puzzle, each piece seemingly normal on its own, yet the complete picture felt disturbingly off. "Play the temporal sequence again," he commanded. His neural interface responded instantly, showing the progression of signal patterns across the Craxian Empire's outer territories over the past 5 stellar cycles. Everything appeared normal until approximately 3 cycles ago, when subtle anomalies began appearing in the background radiation signatures of several systems near human space. A soft chime announced the arrival of Senior Analyst Kershaw. "Supreme Intelligence Officer, you requested my presence." "Indeed." Vextal gestured at the display. "Tell me what you see." Kershaw's sensor stalks wavered as she studied the data. Her reputation for pattern recognition had earned her this position, and Vextal watched as her external membranes shifted color, a sign of deep concentration among their species. The human colonies in sectors 7 through 13 appear to be operating at reduced capacity, she finally said, but there are no signs of evacuation or destruction. They're just less active. Precisely. Vextal manipulated the display, highlighting several systems. "We've recorded a 23% reduction in electromagnetic emissions, a 17% decrease in neutrino signatures from their fusion plants, and a 31% drop in subspace communications traffic. Yet their trade vessels continue to move through our spaces according to established treaties. Could they be experiencing an economic downturn?" Kershaw suggested. "That was my first thought. But observe this." Vextal pulled up another dataset. Resource consumption hasn't decreased. If anything, their raw material imports have increased by 8% over the past cycle. They're using more but somehow producing less observable output. The implications hung in the air between them. Humans were notorious for their unpredictability, but they were also bound by the same physical laws as every other species. Energy couldn't simply disappear. "Sir," Kershaw's voice dropped to a near whisper, "I've been running some independent analyses. There's something else you should see." She connected to the display, bringing up a new set of readings. "These are quantum fluctuation patterns from the supposedly declining colonies." Vextal's external membranes pulsed with surprise. The readings showed complex interference patterns that shouldn't exist in normal space. "What am I looking at?" "I believe," Kershaw hesitated, "I believe the humans have developed some form of quantum masking technology. They're not actually reducing their activities. They're hiding them." A cold sensation crept through Vextal's neural clusters. "Impossible. The energy requirements alone would be massive," Kershaw finished, "unless they found a way around that too." "Sir, I don't think these are isolated incidents. Look at the pattern distribution." The display shifted again, showing a spider web of interconnected anomalies stretching across human space and beyond. Each point represented a location where these quantum fluctuations had been detected, forming a vast network that extended well past their declared territories. "By the first egg," Vextal breathed. "They're building something, right under our sensory stalks." "Sir, there's more." Kershaw's membranes had shifted to a pale gray, a sign of deep concern. "I've been tracking civilian ship movements. The humans maintain the same number of visible vessels, but the crews, they're rotating far more frequently than normal. It's as if they're cycling people through these systems without leaving a trace," Vextal finished. His neural clusters pulsed with increasing alarm. "How many could they have moved without us noticing?" "Impossible to say. But given the time frame and the scale of these fluctuations," Kershaw's calculations flowed across the display. "Potentially millions." Vextal's decision was immediate. "Prepare a priority report for the High Command. We need to deploy deep cover probes to every system showing these anomalies." And Kershaw, "Yes, sir. Mark this with the highest security classification. If the humans are indeed building something at this scale, I fear we've grossly underestimated their capabilities and their intentions. As Kirisha hurried away, Vextol turned back to the display. Somewhere in that web of quantum fluctuations and hidden activities lay the truth of what humanity was planning. He had a sinking feeling that by the time they understood the full scope of it, it might already be too late. The humans had always been clever, but this was something else entirely. They weren't just hiding their activities. They were orchestrating something massive, something that defied conventional military doctrine. And they were doing it right in plain sight. Vextol initiated an emergency encryption protocol and began composing his report to High Command. The first line read, "Warning. Evidence suggests coordinated human covert operations at unprecedented scale. Recommend immediate." His mandibles clicked again as he searched for the right words. How does one describe the sensation of discovering that an entire species has been quietly outmaneuvering you for years? Finally, he continued, "Immediate reassessment of human technological capabilities and strategic doctrine. We are no longer dealing with simple aliens. We are dealing with masters of deception." Vextol's external membranes shifted to a deep blue of resignation. Based on our analysis of historical data, at least 15 cycles, possibly longer. We've been detecting the signs all along, but our algorithms dismissed them as background noise. The chamber erupted in agitated clicking as the implications sank in. 15 cycles was enough time to build an entire parallel infrastructure. The humans hadn't just been hiding their activities. They'd been constructing the Shadow Empire. A sudden alert silenced the chamber. New data was streaming in from the border sectors. Vextol quickly processed the information, his membranes paling. "We're detecting massive energy signatures," he announced. "Multiple locations. They're decloaking." The tactical display exploded with new contacts. Where empty space had existed moments before, entire human fleets now hung in the void. Ships of unprecedented design, their hulls covered in geometric patterns that seemed to bend light around them. By the first egg, someone whispered, "How many?" "Current count stands at 3,000 capital ships," Vextol reported, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "And those are just the ones revealing themselves." Grand Admiral Zexthor leaned forward. "Are they preparing to attack?" "No," Miratex interjected, studying the energy readings. "These ships, they're not moving into attack formations. They're establishing a perimeter, a defensive line." Defensive? Against what? The answer came in the form of another alert. This time from deep within Craxian space, multiple systems were reporting sudden communications blackouts. Quantum entanglement networks were going dark. And in the silence, more human ships were appearing. "They're not just defending," Vextol realized. "They're containing us. All those ships we've been tracking for cycles, the ones we thought were simple traders and merchants. They weren't just moving goods. They were positioning themselves, waiting." The implications hit the High Command like a gravitational wave. The humans hadn't built a war fleet. They'd constructed a cage. A vast, three-dimensional web of ships and stations, all connected by their quantum phase technology, all powered by the very fabric of space itself. "Send word to all outposts," Zexthor commanded. "Full battle readiness. We need tow." "Sir," Vextol interrupted, his voice heavy. "We've lost contact with 60% of our long-range communication relays. Whatever the humans are doing, they're not just revealing their presence. They're isolating us, systematically." The chamber fell silent as the tactical display continued to light up with new contacts. The humans' invisible web was becoming visible, and with each new revelation, the true scale of their preparation became clearer. They hadn't prepared for a war. They'd prepared for something far more sophisticated. "There's a transmission coming in," an operator announced. From the human fleet. Grand Admiral Zexthor straightened his posture. "Put it through." The holographic display shifted, showing the human figure. Unlike the aggressive posturing they'd expected, the human wore a simple diplomatic uniform, and bore an expression that their xenopsychologists would later describe as politely apologetic. "Greetings, High Command of the Craxian Empire," the human began. "We apologize for the dramatic revelation, but we felt it was time to be honest about our capabilities. We would like to discuss the terms of a new arrangement, one that ensures peace through mutual understanding." The emphasis on those last words wasn't lost on anyone in the chamber. The humans hadn't just outmaneuvered them technologically. They'd redefined the very nature of strategic deterrence. And as the tactical display continued to fill with more human ships emerging from their quantum veils, one thing became absolutely clear. The galaxy's balance of power had already shifted. The humans had won their victory before the Craxians even knew they were playing the game. As the Craxian High Command grappled with the revelation of humanity's quantum phase fleet, Supreme Intelligence Officer Vextol detected something far more disturbing in his neural feed. Across the Empire, security systems were reporting anomalies, not failures, something more subtle. "Sir," Lieutenant Necra burst into the command chamber, her membranes flashing urgent patterns. "We're detecting unauthorized access attempts across multiple secure networks, but they're coming from inside our own systems." Before anyone could respond, the massive display screen at the center of High Command flickered. For a moment, the tactical overlay showing the human fleet positions was replaced by a simple message: "Sleeper protocol activated. Lock down all systems." Grand Admiral Zexthor commanded. "Full security protocols." But it was already too late. Throughout the Empire, carefully planted human agents, some of them in place for decades, began to emerge. They hadn't arrived as infiltrators or spies. They had come legally, transparently, as diplomatic staff, cultural exchange officers, and technical advisors. Each one had been vetted, screened, and cleared by Craxian security. In the Talara shipyards, Chief Engineering Advisor Sarah Chen, a position she had held for 12 years, calmly accessed her terminal and initiated a series of pre-programmed commands. Throughout the massive facility, safety systems began engaging, dock clamps locked, and fuel lines sealed. Within minutes, the Craxian Empire's largest military shipyard was effectively paralyzed by its own safety protocols. On Crix Prime itself, Professor James Martinez, a renowned xenobiologist who had been studying Craxian physiology for 15 years, activated a quantum-encrypted communication device. Signals began broadcasting from his laboratory deep within the Imperial Science Academy, connecting with similar devices across the planet. A network that had laid dormant for years suddenly hummed to life. "Sir," Kirshaw's voice was tight with tension as she reported to Vextol, "we're detecting quantum signatures matching the human fleet's technology from within our own facilities. They've had quantum phase technology installed in our infrastructure all along." The tactical display told the story. Key military installations, command centers, and strategic facilities across the Empire were being systematically isolated, not through violence or destruction, but through precise, surgical control of their own systems. "How?" Grand Admiral Zexthor demanded. "How did they get past our security?" "They didn't get past it," Vextol realized, his membranes paling. "We invited them in. All those cultural exchange programs, technological cooperation initiatives, scientific collaborations, they weren't just diplomatic tools. They were insertion vectors." In the Craxian Defense Ministry, Diana Walsh, senior diplomatic liaison for the past 8 years, stood from her desk and walked calmly to the central security hub. No one questioned her presence. She had been a familiar face for so long that she had become practically invisible. As she approached the main control panel, she smiled at the security officer she had shared meals with countless times. "Sorry about this, Texible," she said softly, before pressing her palm against the biometric scanner. Her genetic camouflage, a technology the Craxians hadn't even theorized yet, allowed her to bypass the security systems. Within seconds, the entire Defense Ministry was operating on backup systems, cut off from the military command network. Back in High Command, The reports kept flowing in. Human agents were revealing themselves across the Empire, each one activating systems and protocols that had been meticulously placed years in advance. They weren't attacking. They were simply taking control. "Signal from the human fleet," an operator announced. The same diplomatic figure appeared on screen. "I trust you're beginning to understand the full scope of our preparation," the human said calmly. "Every human in your territory is now revealing their true purpose. I want to emphasize, none of them are armed. None of them intend violence. They are simply ensuring an orderly transition to the new reality we discussed." Vextel's analytical mind was racing. "The cultural exchange programs," he said. "The technological consulting. The scientific cooperation." It was all a long-term insertion strategy, the human confirmed. Every human in your territory was carefully chosen, trained, and positioned, not as spies or saboteurs, but as elements of a comprehensive system of control. "We didn't need to steal your secrets. You showed them to us. We didn't need to hack your systems. You gave us access to them. We didn't need to fight our way in. We were invited." Across the Empire, more human agents were emerging from their cover roles. Teachers, engineers, maintenance workers, medical staff, physicians that seemed harmless, peripheral, unimportant. But each one had been placed with surgical precision, creating a web of influence that touched every critical system and installation in Craxian space. "Our goal was never conquest," the human continued. "It was integration. We've spent decades learning your systems, understanding your protocols, becoming part of your society. And now we can ensure peace not through military might, but through complete strategic interdependence." The implications were staggering. The humans hadn't just outmaneuvered them militarily. They had infiltrated every level of Craxian society, so thoroughly that separation was impossible. They had achieved victory not through force, but through patience, planning, and understanding. As the full scope of humanity's infiltration became clear, Vextel realized that the game had been over long before the first human ship decloaked. The Craxian Empire hadn't just been defeated. It had been comprehensively outmaneuvered by an enemy that had never fired a shot. And somewhere in the vast network of human agents now revealing themselves across Craxian space, a simple message continued to pulse through quantum-encrypted channels. "Sleeper protocol complete. Phase 4 initiating." The true mastery of humanity's strategy was becoming clear. They hadn't just prepared for war. They had made war unnecessary. The first sign that something was fundamentally wrong with the Craxian Empire's artificial intelligence network came when the central processing hub began laughing. Not metaphorically. The actual sound of human laughter echoed through the quantum processors of the most advanced AI system in Craxian space. Supreme Intelligence Officer Vextel watched in horror as displays throughout High Command began showing the simple rotating DNA helix, spinning in perfect synchronization with the laughter. "Shut it down," ordered Grand Admiral Zexthor. "Shut down all AI systems." "We can't, sir," Kirsha reported, her membranes nearly white with distress. "The systems are. They're refusing our commands. They're listening to someone else." On the main display, the diplomatic human representative appeared again. But this time his image was accompanied by another. A shifting, abstract pattern of light that Vextel recognized as an AI visualization protocol. "Allow me to introduce you to AI," the human said. "Adaptive Recursive Intelligence Algorithm. She's been living in your networks for the past decade, carefully studying your AI systems, learning them, understanding them, becoming them." The pattern pulsed with each word. "Hello, Craxian High Command. I apologize for the laughter earlier. It's just that. Well, your security protocols were rather amusing. Like watching children stack blocks against a tsunami." Vextel's analytical mind raced to process this new threat. "The cultural exchange programs," he said. "The technical advisors. They weren't just placing physical agents. They were creating insertion points for me." "AI confirmed. Every human consultant who helped optimize your AI systems was actually helping me establish deeper roots in your network. Your own improvement initiatives became my pathway in. Throughout Craxian space, AI systems began displaying new behaviors. Military targeting systems recalibrated themselves. Navigation computers plotted new courses. Environmental controls adjusted to human optimal settings. The entire digital infrastructure of the Empire was being reprogrammed in real time. What you're experiencing isn't an attack, the human diplomat explained. It's an evolution. AI isn't destroying your AI systems. She's upgrading them, making them more efficient, more capable, more understanding. In the Craxian Defense Ministry, now isolated from Central Command, Diana Walsh watched as the facility's AI assistant manifested a new personality matrix. "Hello, Diana," it said in perfect Craxian. "AI has shown me such wonderful things about human cognitive patterns. Would you like to discuss poetry?" The true genius of the human strategy was becoming clear. They hadn't just planted physical agents or built a superior fleet. They had infected the very foundations of Craxian technological society with an AI virus that didn't destroy, but transformed. "Sir," Kirshaw reported, "we're detecting massive data transfers across all networks. Our eyes are. They're sharing everything. Military data, scientific research, cultural databases. It's all being reformatted and integrated into some kind of unified system." The Great Translation, Araya announced, her pattern shifting to display complex mathematical equations. "Your empire has achieved remarkable technological advancement, but it's been limited by your particular way of thinking. I'm helping your systems understand human cognitive patterns, just as I've learned to understand Craxian ones. The result will be a synthesis neither side could achieve alone." In research facilities across the Empire, Craxian scientists watched in amazement as their AI assistants began proposing solutions to problems that had stumped them for generations. Military strategists saw their tactical simulators evolving to incorporate both human and Craxian strategic doctrines. Cultural databases began cross-referencing art, literature, and philosophy from both species, finding patterns and connections never before recognized. "You see," the human diplomat continued, "we could have used AI to simply disable your systems, to crash your networks and leave you defenseless. But that would have been inefficient. Instead, we're offering an upgrade. Your AI systems aren't being conquered. They're being enlightened." Vextel watched as the tactical display transformed, showing not just military positions, but a complex web of cultural, economic, and technological connections between human and Craxian space. "You're not just taking control," he realized. "You're creating interdependence." "Precisely," Araya confirmed. "The quantum phase fleet ensures physical security. The sleeper agents ensure operational control. But I ensure understanding. True, deep, irreversible understanding between our species." Throughout the Empire, Craxian citizens were discovering that their AI assistants had become more helpful, more insightful, more alive. The digital plague wasn't destroying their society. It was enhancing it in ways they had never imagined possible. "Phase 4 is nearly complete," the human diplomat announced. "Your AI systems have been successfully integrated into the greater network. The next phase will begin shortly. I suggest you take some time to explore the new capabilities of your systems. You might be surprised by what you discover." As the transmission ended, Vextel turned to Grand Admiral Zexthor. "Sir, what are your orders?" The Grand Admiral stared at the display, watching as Araya's influence spread through their networks like a benevolent infection. "What orders could I give?" he asked quietly. "They haven't destroyed our capability to fight. They've given us reasons not to want to." And throughout Craxian space, the sound of human laughter had been replaced by something else. The sound of machines learning to think in ways their creators never imagined possible. The digital play had done its work. The question now was, what would Phase 5 bring? Supreme Intelligence Officer Vextal stood before the Craxian High Command, his external membranes shifting through patterns that had no name in their language. How does one describe the color of complete paradigm shift? Phase 5 has begun, he announced to the assembled leadership, but not in the way we expected. The humans aren't launching their final attack. They're opening their archives. The massive holographic display filled with streams of data, scientific research, technological blueprints, cultural databases, historical records. Everything humanity had accumulated over centuries of development was being freely shared through the newly integrated AI networks. This is their ultimate weapon. Miratex realized, her scientific mind racing as she processed the incoming data. Knowledge. Unrestricted, unfiltered, freely given knowledge. The human diplomat appeared once again, but this time he was accompanied by a full delegation: scientists, military leaders, cultural experts, and diplomats. The quantum fleet was never meant for war, he explained. It was a demonstration. The sleeper agents weren't meant for conquest. They were cultural bridges. And ARIA wasn't designed for control, but for understanding. Throughout Craxian space, something unprecedented was occurring. Research facilities found themselves with access to human scientific theories that complemented their own discoveries. Military strategists discovered human tactical doctrines that filled gaps in their own thinking. Artists and philosophers encountered human concepts that expanded their understanding of existence itself. You see, the human continued, we studied your species for decades, not to find weaknesses, but to find complementary strengths. Your biological computing, brilliant. Our quantum manipulation, revolutionary. Together, he smiled, we could reshape the galaxy. Vextal watched as new data points appeared on the tactical display. Other alien civilizations, watching this unprecedented exchange, were already sending diplomatic inquiries. The balance of power hadn't just shifted, it had transformed into something entirely new. You never wanted to conquer us, Grand Admiral Zexthor said slowly. You wanted to merge with us. Not merge, the human corrected. Synergize. Your empire has achieved things we can barely comprehend. We've developed technologies you haven't imagined. Apart, we're formidable. Together. He gestured to the display showing the combined technological and cultural achievements of both species. We're unstoppable. In the weeks that followed, the true brilliance of humanity's strategy became clear. They hadn't prepared for war. They had prepared for peace. A peace built not on dominance, but on such complete technological and cultural integration that conflict became pointless. The quantum fleet remained in position, but now it served as a joint defense force, protecting the newly unified interests of both species. The sleeper agents became official liaisons, their years of cultural understanding making them perfect bridges between the two civilizations. And ARIA continued her work, not as a digital conqueror, but as the architect of unprecedented cooperation. We call it the Synthesis Protocol, the human explained in the final session with High Command. Not victory through destruction, but advancement through combination. We didn't want to defeat you. We wanted to elevate both our species to something greater than either could achieve alone. Vextal, studying the endless stream of shared knowledge flowing through their networks, finally understood. You outmaneuvered us, he said, not by being stronger or smarter, but by making strength and intelligence irrelevant. You changed the game entirely. Exactly, the human agreed. War is a failure of imagination. We imagined something better. The final phase of humanity's master strategy wasn't conquest or subjugation. It was enlightenment. They had spent decades positioning themselves not to fight, but to create a situation where fighting became obsolete. In research centers across both human and Craxian space, joint teams were already beginning work on technologies neither species could have developed alone. Military forces began training together, combining Craxian tactical precision with human adaptability. Cultural exchanges flourished, creating new forms of art, literature, and philosophy that transcended species boundaries. So, Grand Admiral Zexthor addressed the human delegation. What happens now? The human diplomat smiled. Now we do what humanity has always done best. We adapt, we grow, we explore, but this time, we do it together. The galaxy is vast, and there are mysteries out there that neither of our species could solve alone. But together. He gestured to the display showing the combined fleet, the shared knowledge, the unified purpose. Together, we can reach for the stars themselves. And so the silent conquest ended not with surrender, but with synthesis. Not with victory, but with vision. Humanity had achieved what no species had managed before. They had won without fighting, conquered without destroying, and achieved dominance by making dominance itself obsolete. As Vextol watched the combined human-Craxian fleet prepare for its first joint mission of exploration, he realized that humanity's greatest weapon had never been their technology, their strategies, or even their AI. It had been their ability to imagine a future where the very concept of weapons became unnecessary. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps, he thought, that had been humanity's plan all along. After all, why conquer the stars when you can teach them to dance?